Hello, host Eric here, host Talking with Famous People. Meg has followed up with the thing about this Stefan guy. Obviously, they are annoying morons and idiots, duh. They're also train wreckishly fascinating because they're so utterly convinced of their logical purity, even though they conflate belief with fact and throw the fishing net of their arguments, basically a loose patchwork of barely apt metaphors, over entire groups of people. But I think they are an excellent example of a combination of bizarre syntax and cheap arrogance meets pseudo plain speak or plan speak. It works either way. That people really go for. Why do people eat this shit up? Also, a prize should go for anybody who watched the whole thing. Yeah, I couldn't imagine watching the whole thing either. Well, okay, I mean, I read this comment and it really made me think about it. Like, okay, well, why is it that people, what? I get the basic idea of like, well, I'm part of a team, and so I'm listening to my team's offerings. But that's not a satisfactory explanation, insofar as you could conceive of your team doing a much more effective job of stating its positions, even if you were desperate to keep the team notion. So what is it that's so appealing about this? Well, I don't think this is going to be the most complimentary explanation in the world, but I believe it has to do with weak TI for sure, but unconscious TE. Those should be the audience members of this. Weak TI, unconscious TE. I think those who value TE consciously, I wouldn't imagine them particularly enjoying that media, because it's simply an exercise in condemnation. You know, it's an exercise in the smackdown, the rhetorical smackdown. But without any underlying disputant. I mean, that's the problem. They don't really have a disputant who's actually disputing their ideas. It's argumentation theater. It's not actual argumentation. So that's the main problem with it, right? And why do people prefer argumentation theater over actual argumentation? Well, so this is where I really started wanting to make a video on this comment when I started thinking about this, because what I arrived at is that, okay, so people will say that, okay, actual argumentation is going to be too boring, too technical, seem too much like splitting hairs. But I think the reason it seems that way is because people are defaulting to a relativistic framework one way or the other. No matter how much of an absolutist they are, they're still defaulting to a relativistic framework, because socially we've all been trained to within an inch of our life that everyone's entitled to their own political opinion and stuff like that. And that when people disagree about politics, neither of them is right or wrong. That's just politics. We've all been internalizing that since birth, just by living in America, if we're here in America or some free state that prioritizes free expression. Unavoidably, we note that the world around us involves people not talking about certain things, people disagreeing but not resolving those disagreements, and people stating wildly different things as though they were absolutely certainly true, and never actually putting them up against each other. It's as though you got a football season where the teams put out weekly press reports about how badass they are and how shitty the other teams are, but they never actually play each other. Well, you don't expect me to go get my uniform dirty, do you? We're obviously better than that team anyway, so we don't need to actually go play the game. Well, yeah, you do. Otherwise, why should I think your ideas are better? It doesn't matter how eloquently you present them. In the absence of scrutiny, I mean, there's no reason to think you aren't. I mean, there's no reason to think your ideas are good just because they sound good. Until and unless I scrutinize them, or until and unless I hear or see them subject to scrutiny, I should default to the assumption that they're not worth listening to. A good thinker, a decent human being, is going to use reciprocal burdens in a lot of areas in life, but certainly in argumentation. And they can be as fiery or as convinced or whatever as they want, provided they get out on the playing field. Stephen Molyneux is somebody who's never played a down of football and who's walking around school wearing his football uniform talking about how badass of a football team he is and how he would beat those other teams all by himself. Well, why don't you go play it down, actually? Oh, I play right now. No, that guy's your teammate. You guys are both helping each other. You're not actually playing against anyone. So, why then do people actually pursue this media? Well, I mean, there's juice. There's juice in it, you know? There's juice in getting riled up about shit. It makes you feel like, you know, amped up or whatever. And it might energize you to fire off a couple angry comments or something like that, which can be kind of cathartic. But ultimately, I think it satisfies a little bit of people's frustration at not having anybody to blame, and it becomes manifest in a world where people have been conditioned to political relativism, and they don't understand that the goal is, if you're conditioned to accept that all political beliefs are opinion, that they belong in the opinion pages, and that neither is right, and at the end of the day they're just editorial perspectives. If you're conditioned to think that, then obviously you're not going to be conditioned to demand individuals making strong claims to enter those claims into the fray of testing, namely public, open, actual discourse, where people respond to your actual points and make actual points. So that's basically all I have to say about it. I think that shit's gonna sort of fade away. I really do, because people's media habits evolve over time, and I would hope that those who listen or watch a lot of that stuff, eventually they get tired of it and they kind of go, "Oh, I see what they're doing. Have I been just sort of like sucking on that teat this whole time? Ugh. I'm just sucking on the indignation teat? That milk is sour."